I'd like to know a little bit more about this Mayan calendar and the misunderstandings about that,
Okay.
and this whole thing about galactic alignment.
Yes, yes.
Tell me about that.
So if you wanted to go to the core of where the narratives about 2012 started from, that's where you have to begin. And the Mayans were a ancient Mesoamerican culture. They peaked between about 200 and 900 AD, and after them they disappeared. And they didn't leave very many written documents behind, because those were all destroyed by the Spanish, who wanted to destroy the culture there as much as they could. But they did leave a lot of glyphs on monuments. They carved a lot of things into monuments. So it was Jose Arguelles who actually began the whole 2012 narrative. One individual did all of this. And if you remember, Jose, he was the person behind the harmonic convergence. So he wrote his book, The Mayan Factor, which came out in 1987, which talked about the end of the Mayan calendar and how that was going to be a prophecy for our time. So he was the one who really started the whole narrative. Although other people have talked about the Mayan calendar before, he kind of put it into popular culture, into contemporary collective consciousness. So it was Jose who started this whole thing, and from his point of view, the harmonic convergence was really a countdown to 2012. And he, according to his view, there was going to be some kind of beam coming out of the center of the galaxy, resonant frequency synchronization beam that was going to somehow magically move everybody up spiritually in a kind of ascension thing. That's what he thought was going to happen in 2012. So when people look at the Mayan calendar, the thing that they note about the calendar is that it reaches a completion point on December 21st, 2012. And we have to go deeper to understand exactly what that is. The Mayan calendar was, the long count Mayan calendar, they had other kinds of calendars that used daily calendars, but they needed a way to track historical time. So for example, how do you tell the difference between 1400 BCE and 1400 AD? BCE, before the Common Era, or that's what that means. So that's why we have BC and AD in our calendars, so we can distinguish exactly what date, historical date you're referring to. So the Mayans developed this calendar from other Mesoamerican groups and perfected it somewhere between 200 and 900 AD. And the way they did their calendar is they counted things in different increments. There were 5 different placeholders on their calendar. The first placeholder starts with days, and then when you have 20 of those days, then you go to the second place in the calendar. And then when you have 360 days, it's the third place, and then 7,200 days is the fourth place, and the fifth place is every 144,000 days. So imagine what it'd be like today if we had calendars that that many days in them. So that adds up to 5,125 years. So their calendar goes from 3,104 BCE, starts on August the 11th, 3,114 BCE, and it reaches its culmination in December 21st, 2012. Now, so what's the significance of that? The calendar is going to reach its completion point. That's the rub. And the analogy I like to use for this is, imagine you have a car with a speedometer that would only register up to 100,000 miles. So if it only can do 100,000 miles, you have 5 different place settings on your odometer, because it goes from 10 miles, 100 miles, 1,000 miles, 10,000 miles, and then when you get up to 99,999, that's where we'll be on December 20th, 2012.
And it flips over.
Then what happens on the next day? Well, everything will be zeros again. And that's exactly how the Mayans looked at their calendar.
Right.
They had a calendar which, from their point of view, was a world age, starting way back in the past, 3,104 BC.
A lot like the yugas of the Hindu calendar.
Yeah, similar. It's an analogous to the yugas of that. So the last placeholder in the Mayan long calendar of 144,000 4,000 days is equivalent to 394 years.
Wow.
So if you multiply that by 13, then that gives you the date, the 5,125 years. So their calendar will read on December 21st, 2012, 13.0.0.0.0, which is 13 of the big units and none of the other 4 smaller ones. So on December the 22nd, 2012, the calendar will roll over again, and what we'll have would be 00001, because it will be day 1 of the new long count calendar. Now, the way the whole narrative got started around the calendar is that there was a monument in Mexico, monument number 6 near Tabasco, Mexico, that had an inscription about 2012 on it, and the people couldn't read it completely because part of it was completely effaced, it was gone. But it said something about 2012 and maybe a deity is going to come into play or whatever. And that kept people to thinking, well, the return of Jesus or
the ETs.
ETs, the Pleiadians, Maitreya, Quetzalcoatl.
Barbara Ann Cloud thing of a few years back, the Bringers of the Dawn predicted a lot of this stuff. It's happening now.
It feeds right into the Christian mythology that, from a Christian perspective, the Christian mythological perspective, time is linear. There's a beginning and there's an end. And so that would be the end of time, the end of days, and that would be the apocalypse, where judgment would happen and the saved would be, the people who were faithful would be saved and the other people would be lost somehow.
Right, and yet that's counter to how the universe works, because the universe is always expanding.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's a cycle. There's always these cycles of nature.
Right.
And the Mayans were very tuned into the cycles of nature. In our limited Western perspective, we think we are the only age of man. We're the only age that's ever been.
I think we're the only, period.
The only age. Because if you think about it, the Mayans were actually very prescient in defining this unit of time as being an age, because it starts 3,114 BCE, beginning of the pharaohs in Egypt, the beginning of Mesopotamia, Sumer, and so on. Beginning of recorded history was about 3,000 BCE.
Right, when they were started doing the stone tablets.
Right, that's the beginning. So we see that as the beginning of our civilization. And then they said, well, the things are reaching a culmination in 2012. Then what? And then what? Because
well, we're going to fall off into the ocean. What do you know?
Because the calendar reaches the long count reaches a completion. People don't realize that that's the beginning of another long count. As my revered teacher Stan Dale used to say, all endings automatically equal new beginnings. And there's a great wisdom in that.
Absolutely. And that's how the people that I've been talking to, including yourself, view this whole thing. It is a new beginning. It's an opportunity to wipe that slate clean and just start from that space of love rather than that space of fear and move forward from there.
Yeah, we could get to that place. That would be really terrific if we could do that.
A lot of people are working on that in that direction right now.